This is a short vid to summarize the cognitive tests performed at the Spartan Baby Badass Ultra in 2024, the SBBU 2024. A little bit about what the SBBU 2024 was. It was a endurance event which is held once a year in Bedford View to raise funds for CHOC, the Childhood Cancer Foundation for South Africa. And this happened on the 27th of April, starting at 10 a.m. at the Italian Club in Bedford View, Gauteng, South Africa. And what it entailed was running either 4.167 kilometers, making up the 100K option, or 4.16 miles, making up the 100-mile option on the hour, every hour for 24 hours. So challengers either had to complete 100 kilometers or 100 miles within 24 hours by running the 4.167 kilometers or 4.167 miles every hour on the hour. The main goal was not only to prove that the entrants were badass Spartan babies, but more importantly, to raise the much needed funds and awareness for all the children and teenagers fighting childhood cancer. These were the intrepid entrants, 49 on the day. And a little bit about the cognitive test. The head researcher was a clinical psychologist by the name of Gerard Finnemore. And the purpose of the research was to examine the effect of mental and physical fatigue on focus and concentration as participants moved through the 24-hour event. Of course, confidentiality was imperative, and so all the data was strictly confidential and not given out without any permission from the participant, and only aggregated data and trends would be shared, as will be seen in this vid. And of course, entrants had the right to discontinue at any point. 13 responders of the 49 Spartans who started the endurance event put up their hands to do the test. 2 of them were 100 milers and 11 were the 100-kilometer entrants. And so a battery of 6 tests was done every 4 hours, starting from the second loop, running right through the night, interestingly at 11 o'clock at night, and after the 18th loop at somewhere in the 3 o'clock hour, right through to the next morning, with the last test being done in the 7 o'clock hour band on loop 22. So you can imagine trying to keep your brains going, having run those kind of distances through the night over 24 hours. So a little bit of general stats, firstly by age category on those 13 respondents. 2 of them were in their 20s. There was 100 miler in the 40s, 200 kilometer entrants in the 40s. And then by far the biggest age category was in the 50 somethings, 100 miler and 7 in the 100 kilometer field. There were 4 females, all of them in their 50s, and the remaining 9 entrants were male, as can be seen there. A little bit of stats in terms of the loops completed or not completed. 1 entrant finished after 16 loops, 1 after 17, 1 after 19, and the remaining 10, both the 200 milers and the 8 100-kilometer entrants, completed the full 24 loops. And by age category, you will see that there was 1 in the 50-somethings that finished the 16 loops, 1 also finished 17, 1 finished 19, and then the 2 20-somethings finished the 24 loops, as did all the 40-somethings and the remaining 50-somethings. So that's just a bit of background as to who entered the test. So firstly, before the objective tests were done, some self-perceptions were done of each respondent at every of the rounds of tests that were done. So before the test was done, the objective test, people were asked on how they felt. And so the first thing people were asked to rate from 0 to 10, 0 being I feel terrible, 10 feel I'm feeling fantastic, was how they felt physically. Physically, I am feeling, and a score from, 1 to 10. And you can see how the trends over the loops, not surprisingly, started tending down in terms of how people felt physically. Having said that, if you notice carefully, there's a dotted green line on the 10, which meant at least one entrant felt they were feeling physically fantastic throughout the event. The goldy color reflects the 200 milers, and the black line reflects the finishes of the 100-kilometer entrance. Similarly, they were asked on how they felt mentally, and there you can see the progression, with the red dot being the minimum for all these graphs. And lastly, how were they feeling emotionally? And immediately you can see that emotionally actually was the least decline throughout the time, compared to physical and mental, which is in of itself quite interesting. Then the cognitive scores. So this was a working memory test where people were asked to recall backwards a series of numbers or digits that they were given. Every time they got it right, the number of digits was increased by one. And that went on with a new series of tests with increasing number of digits until they no longer could get the series of digits right recalled in reverse. So remember, no paper, nothing. They were recited verbally, these numbers, and these respondents, having done all the runs, had to play the digits that they just heard backwards by verbalizing them back to the testers. So the first thing that's of interest is how many number of digits recalled backwards did people get right as these loops progressed. And what you'll see here is again the gold line reflecting the 100 milers, and the black line reflecting the finishes. Only the finishes were taken into consideration for both the 100-kilometer and the 100-miler. Of the 13 that started, that did the test, 3 did not complete, as you saw earlier. So this is just the 10 that we saw there, the 200 milers and the 10 100-kilometer entrance. And so, the first thing you can see is that the number of digits recalled were quite consistent, certainly didn't tank as one would expect. In fact, the 100 milers got slightly better towards the end. And again, you'll see the dotted green line. Somebody, at least one person, managed to recite the full 8 digits, the full battery of tests backwards, which is quite extraordinary. There was a scoring mechanism behind this, depending on how many sets of numbers were correctly recited. And so there you see the formal cognitive score of both the 100 milers and the 100-kilometer entrance, together with the minimum and maximum that was scored through the loop. And once again, you can see that there was no major tape off on average for these entrants that finished all the loops. A quick summary, maybe that makes it a little bit easier to read. So this stacked one up against each other is firstly the I am feeling results. The dark gray being the physical feeling, the black being the mental, and the goldy yellow color being the emotional. And you can see that generally, on average, for these finishes, remember these 10 finishes, 200 milers, 8 100-kilometer entrants, you can see that the tendency is down, particularly on the physical side. You're now sitting at a 5 out of 10 on average by loop 22. This is the cognitive score results, the dark gray line being on average how many numbers were recalled by those 10 respondents, and the black bar being the physical score. And so you can see that, in fact, the physical cognitive score, the actual cognitive score, got better over time, alarmingly, quite incredibly, marginally, but still got better as the night progressed and the loops progressed and the distance progressed. The dotted line here is just an indicator. It's called the mental perception score, which really says if this group scored 8.6 on the first loop, as we saw, the first battery of tests after loop 2, that was the average 8.6. And if they were feeling at that stage, on average, a 9 out of 10, then towards the end, the fact that they felt a 6 out of 10 mentally in the end, given the first score of 8.6, they would have arrived somewhere by that dotted line there, just over the 5.7, maybe 6 out of 10. So that's what we expected the cognitive scores to have done based on how respondents felt mentally, again, the black bar going down, with the first test being the anchor point. So we expected them to be down by 6. Yet you can see that the actual cognitive scores went up to 10.3, which is quite remarkable. So the last thing you'll see across the board, most people had a dip on loop 10 that was around about 7:30-ish in the evening, which is quite interesting. But soon after that, bounced back. This is the loop 14 was the 11 o'clock loop, loop 18, the 3 in the morning loop, and then loop 22, the 7 in the morning loop. So for some reason, on average, people had a lull at 7 o'clock, loop 10, but then kicked back and just powered through the night, through sunrise, which is quite incredible. So these are proper Spartan badass babies, as you can see. There were some concluding remarks from Gerard, the head researcher. And really what he said was that certainly the SBBU is an underestimated community with little change in performance and in some cases an actual improvement as the night progressed. And while there could have been a contribution to the fact that people were getting used to the type of test every time the numbers were different, certainly Gerard's view was that this cannot account for the excellent performance. Whoops, sorry about that. So what he did like in the two is that certainly in the case with extreme adventurers, when they're asked why they are able to do what they do, they tend to always give the same answer, which is that actually anyone can do it. You just got to start something slightly outside your comfort zone and build on that over time. And SBBU runners, being accomplished athletes, certainly followed that process, he believes. And maybe even within the test itself, a little bit discomfort. What is this test about? And then just leaned into this test and got better at it, at doing it, despite it being different numbers every time, despite the physical, mental, and emotional fatigue. So the key message from Gerard is that exercise has multiple benefits, and cognitive strength certainly seems to be one of them. And he thanked everybody for being good sports. And that really is the summary of the tests. Again, a reminder, this was not just for fun, although it was great fun. This was actually to donate to CHOC. There's a big target of 550,000 out there. We're about 80,000 short. So please click on the description of this vid. There's a link to the website, and please donate. Thank you very much.